They hung my mom on a tree, save her. Little girl begged Duke what he did next. Twisted branches clawed at the sky, and the cold air carried the faint scent of smoke and earth. Somewhere deeper in the woods, a tree groaned as though it carried the weight of 1,000 sorrows. Alara ran. Her small feet pounded against the muddy ground, her dress torn at the hem and her hair plastered to her face with sweat. Her chest heaved, lungs burning, but she could not stop. She had to reach him. She had to reach the Duke. "They'll kill her if I do," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Tears stung her eyes, blurring the dark shapes of the trees around her. She had seen the horrors before. Her mother, tied to a tree, the tree itself unlike any ordinary tree, its bark blackened, twisted, and crawling with faint, unnatural light. Her mother's life hung on the thin line between the living and the damned. At the edge of the forest, the fortress loomed, a dark silhouette against the dawn. The walls were high, built from stone blackened by time and storm, with towers that pierced the sky. The Duke's fortress was a place of fear and whispers, a place where only those brave or desperate dared to tread. Alara's hands shook as she gripped the cold iron gate. She had never been inside, but she knew the stories of the Duke who could summon storms with a whisper, who ruled both by law and by fear, whose eyes were said to see into the heart of any soul. Her voice broke as she called out, "Please, Duke Kalen. Please, my mother, she is hanging." A shadow moved along the walls above her. It was almost human in shape, but darker, like smoke shaped into a man. Alara's heart skipped, but she did not falter. She had no time for fear. "Please," she screamed. "You must save her." The gates groaned open, black iron scraping against stone. A figure stepped forward. Tall, broad-shouldered, cloaked in a fabric as black as the night that lingered in the forest, he looked down at her with eyes that were sharp and cold, yet strangely thoughtful. "I am Kalen," he said, his voice low like distant thunder. "Why should I help a child I do not know?" Alara's lips quivered. Because she is my mother. Please, she is alive, but the tree, it is sucking her life. I can't, please." Her small hands reached up, gripping the hem of his cloak, shaking. "I will do anything, anything, please save her." Kalen's face remained calm, unreadable, yet his eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper, pity or curiosity. "The forest is not kind. The tree you speak of, it is cursed. To touch it is to risk your soul." "I don't care," Alara shouted, tears streaming. "I don't care about curses. Please, please save her. You must." Kalen studied her for a long moment. He could feel her fear, but beneath it there was courage. And there was something else, a spark, small but undeniable. She reminded him of someone he had lost long ago, a memory of light in a life darkened by betrayal and solitude. He drew a deep breath. "You must know, if I go with you, there may be consequences you cannot imagine. The forest does not forgive, and neither do I." Alara nodded, her lips trembling. "I don't care, I just want her alive." Kalen's lips tightened. For years he had avoided the cries of the desperate. He had built walls around his heart higher than the fortress itself. Yet now, faced with this small girl, he felt something he had not in decades, a pull he could neither explain nor resist. "Very well," he said finally. "Lead the way." The journey into the forest was quiet at first. Alara ran ahead, Kalen following silently, his boots crushing the fallen leaves. The deeper they went, the darker it became, until the mist seemed to swallow the light completely. The trees bent low, forming unnatural arches as if the forest itself was watching them. Every sound, the snap of a branch, the cry of a crow, set Alara's heart racing. Kalen moved with ease, as though the forest bent to his will, his presence commanding the shadows themselves. He glanced at Alara occasionally, noting how her determination outweighed her fear. She was small, fragile even, yet she moved with the persistence of someone who had nothing left to lose. Suddenly, the forest opened into a clearing, and there it was. The cursed tree. It was taller and wider than any tree Alara had ever seen. Its bark was black like burnt wood, and it pulsed faintly with an inner light, veins of crimson running like fire across its surface. Her mother was there, tied to its trunk, her body hanging limply. Alara's breath caught in her throat and she ran forward, screaming, "Mother!" Kalen stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Wait." His voice was firm, almost gentle. "Do not touch the tree. It will take you if you do. Stand back." Alara looked at him, frustration and fear battling inside her. I can't just stand here." "You said you would save her." Kalen's hand went to the hilt of a dagger at his belt, the blade faintly glowing. "I will save her, but you must trust me." He raised his hands, chanting in a language older than the forest itself. The shadows around the tree twisted, writhing as though alive. The air grew thick, and a low hum filled the clearing. Alara clutched her mother's hands, wishing she could reach her, feeling helpless. Then, from the edge of the clearing, a voice hissed, cold and cruel. "Foolish Duke, did you think it would be that simple?" Alara froze. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman cloaked in deep purple, her eyes gleaming with malice. She was the sorceress who had cursed the tree, and her presence made the air feel heavy with despair. Kalen stepped forward, dagger in hand. "Step back," he said. "You will not harm her." The sorceress laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Harm her? No, I have done far worse. But life, dear Duke, life always comes with a price. Are you willing to pay it?" Kalen's jaw tightened. "I do not fear death, but I will not let you take an innocent life." Alara clutched his arm. "Please save her, please." The sorceress's eyes flicked to Alara, and for a moment her smile faltered. There was something about the girl's courage, something pure, that made the sorceress pause. Kalen noticed too, but he did not lower his guard. "You will regret stepping here," the sorceress said, raising her hands. The shadows from the forest surged, twisting toward the tree, threatening to consume it and them all. Kalen moved swiftly, chanting again. The dagger glowed brighter, slicing through the darkness. The shadows screamed and twisted back, recoiling from his power. Alara's mother groaned, her eyes fluttering open as the energy of life returned to her. Alara's tears flowed freely as she ran to her mother, gripping her tightly. "Mother, you're alive, you're alive." Kalen's voice cut through the air, steady and commanding. "Stay back. Do not touch the tree until I say," the sorceress hissed in fury, retreating slightly, her eyes burning with hatred. "This is not over, Duke. Remember, the forest remembers, and I remember." Kalen's hands dropped, but his eyes did not leave hers. "Go," he said softly. "Take her." Now Alara lifted her mother, supporting her frail frame. Thank you," she cried. She turned to Kalen, eyes shining with gratitude and fear. Who are you?" "I am someone who has walked through darkness for longer than I should," he said quietly. "And I am not yet finished walking." Alara looked at him, feeling a strange warmth in her chest, a sense of safety and something else she could not name. He was cold, dangerous, but also necessary. The forest seemed to breathe around them, the shadows receding, but a whisper of threat lingered in the wind. The sorceress had left her mark, and Kalen knew this was far from over. Alara turned to him one last time. Will you come with us?" Kalen paused, the corners of his mouth tightening. He wanted to say no. He wanted to retreat into solitude as he had done for years. But the pull of the girl's courage, the weight of her mother's life in his hands, it stirred something long buried in his heart. "I will," he said finally, his voice low, carrying both promise and warning. "But know this, the forest watches, and so do I. The darkness is not gone, and it may demand a price none of us are ready to pay." Alara nodded, holding her mother close. "We will face it together," she said softly, determination in her voice. Kalen did not reply. His eyes swept the forest, noting the shifting shadows and the faint, lingering magic of the cursed tree. He knew the journey had only begun, and that this girl, small, fragile, yet unbreakable, would change more than the fate of her mother. She would change him. And the forest, ancient and patient, waited. The morning mist lingered like a soft blanket over the forest, hiding the path ahead. Alara clutched her mother's hand, guiding her slowly over the uneven ground. Her mother's eyes, though weakened by the curse, glimmered with relief and gratitude as she whispered, "Thank you, child and him." Her gaze flicked toward Kalen, who walked silently a few steps behind, his cloak brushing the damp leaves. Kalen's eyes scanned the forest constantly, noting every shadow, every movement. He had seen the sorceress's power before, the way she could twist life itself into chains of pain. And though he had protected countless people in his time, he had never faced a threat like this in the open, where the forest itself seemed to conspire against him. Alara glanced back at him, curiosity in her wide eyes. "Duke, why did you help us? You didn't have to." Kalen's voice was low, careful. "Because some things must be done, child. Some mistakes cannot wait for another day. Some debts must be paid no matter the cost." Alara frowned. "Debt? What do you mean?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he scanned the trees, his hands brushing the hilt of his dagger, faintly glowing with a blue light that seemed to hum in tune with the forest. "There are things I cannot tell you," he said finally. "Some truths are dangerous, but know this, I have my reasons. And right now, your mother's life is more important than anything else." The forest grew darker as they moved deeper. The trees seemed older here, their twisted roots rising like serpents from the ground. Every branch cast strange shadows that made the eyes see shapes where none existed. Even the wind sounded different, a low, almost whispering voice that caressed the ears with both warning and promise. Alara shivered. I don't like this place," she said softly. "It feels alive." Kalen's lips tightened into a thin line. "It is alive. Every tree, every root, every shadow has a memory. Some memories are kind, most are cruel. We walk among ghosts, child. Be careful what you listen to." Her mother nodded weakly. "He speaks the truth," she said, her voice strained but steady. "The forest, it remembers pain, and those who enter must carry it carefully." Alara's small hands trembled as she held her mother's arm. "I just want to get home," she said quietly. "I just want to be safe." Kalen's gaze softened for a moment, watching the girl. She was so small, yet so full of fire. Her courage reminded him of someone he had lost long ago, a light he had thought extinguished. And now, seeing her struggle to protect her mother, he realized that courage often grew in the darkest places, just as flowers could bloom even in shadow. But shadow also carried danger. As they moved, the air thickened. The ground beneath their feet became softer, almost as if it were swallowing them. Roots reached out like fingers brushing against their ankles. Kalen raised his hand, murmuring a short incantation. The roots retracted, hissing softly like wounded snakes. Alara gasped. You can control the forest," Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Not entirely. I can guide it, but it does not obey completely. It is a living thing, unpredictable and wild. One misstep and it could turn against us." They continued in silence for some time, the forest pressing closer with every step. Alara's mind wandered to the sorceress, and she asked in a small voice, "Will she come after us again?" Kalen's jaw tightened. "Yes, she will, and she may bring others with her. That is why we must move carefully. You are small, but your presence is powerful. Do not underestimate yourself. Some forces fear what they cannot control, even if it seems fragile." Alara's mother coughed softly. "We cannot walk forever," she whispered. "The curse may linger in her veins. We need safety soon." Kalen's eyes flicked toward her, sharp and calculating. "Then we must find shelter before nightfall. This forest will not forgive weakness." Hours passed. The forest seemed endless. Shadows lengthened, twisting unnaturally as the sun struggled to break through the canopy. Strange noises echoed, rustling leaves, distant cries, whispers that seemed almost human. Alara's grip on her mother's hand tightened. Fear clawed at her chest, but Kalen's presence was steady behind them, a wall of silent strength that reminded her she was not alone. Suddenly, the path ahead opened into a small clearing. A pool of water glimmered under the faint sunlight that had finally broken through. Kalen paused, crouching to inspect the ground. "We are being followed," he said quietly. Alara's heart skipped. Followed? By who? Kalen did not answer immediately. Instead, he pointed to faint tracks near the edge of the clearing, small footprints that did not belong to any human. "Creatures of the forest," he said finally. "They are drawn to life, to fear. We must move before they decide we are worth their attention." Alara shivered. "Creatures?" he nodded, his eyes scanning the trees. "Not all that walks the forest is alive in the way you understand. Some things linger between life and shadow. Some things are drawn to pain." Her mother's hand trembled in hers. "We must be careful," she whispered. "The curse may reach farther than we think." Kalen's eyes darkened. He could feel the forest watching, waiting. "We do not have time to be afraid," he said. "Fear slows you. Trust in yourself and trust in me." Alara swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. I will try," she said, determination creeping into her voice. The journey continued, slower now, each step deliberate. Kalen guided them around gnarled roots and fallen trees, his presence a shield against the unseen dangers that stirred in the shadows. Despite the fear, Alara felt a strange comfort in his steady pace, his calm in the face of darkness. As the sun began to set, the forest changed again. The air grew colder, the shadows longer, and a faint red glow appeared in the distance, like firelight without fire. Kalen stopped, his eyes narrowed. "There," he said quietly, "a safe place for now, but we must not linger." Alara's mother sighed in relief. "Thank you, Duke Kalen," she said, her voice weak but filled with gratitude. Kalen said nothing, simply leading them toward the glow. The clearing they entered was small but welcoming, surrounded by stone pillars covered in moss. A gentle warmth radiated from the ground, and the air felt lighter. For a moment, Alara allowed herself to breathe freely, but Kalen's gaze remained sharp. He knelt and traced a symbol on the ground with his dagger, murmuring words that made the air hum. Shadows twisted around him, but they stayed confined to the edges of the clearing. The forest would not breach this sanctuary, at least not yet. Alara watched him, fascinated. "Duke, your magic, it's amazing." Kalen did not look at her. "It is dangerous. Do not admire it. Power is not a gift, it is a burden. One must carry it carefully or it will destroy everything." Alara's mother leaned heavily against a pillar. "We are lucky," she said softly. "Luck and his courage. Without him," Alara shook her head. "No, without all of us we cannot survive. We must work together." Kalen finally looked at her, his dark eyes meeting hers. "You speak wisely, child. There is more to courage than running headlong into danger. There is bravery in patience, in thought, in restraint. Remember this." The red glow in the distance deepened as night fell. Shadows crept closer to the edge of the clearing, and Alara felt a chill run down her spine. Something stirred beyond the trees, something watching, waiting, patient. "Are we safe?" Alara whispered. Kalen's lips pressed into a thin line. "For now, but nothing here is truly safe. Not until the forest and the sorceress are defeated, and even then there will be scars." Alara shivered, but she did not move from her place beside her mother. The two of them huddled together, drawing strength from one another. Kalen sat nearby, silent and vigilant, his eyes never leaving the shadows beyond the clearing. Hours passed. The wind whispered secrets through the trees, and the shadows seemed to shift with the rhythm of the forest's heartbeat. Alara's eyes grew heavy, but sleep was impossible. She could not stop thinking about the sorceress, the cursed tree, and the warning that had been left behind. Only one heart may leave, the other will remain forever entwined with the darkness. Her mother stirred, sensing her fear. "You must rest," she said softly. "Courage is not endless, and even the strongest must find strength in sleep." Alara nodded, leaning against her mother, but her thoughts were restless. The Duke's presence comforted her, but she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. She could not let anyone else fall victim, not her mother, not Kalen, not herself. And somewhere in the darkness, The forest watched, patient and unforgiving. The night pressed down on the forest like a heavy cloak, cold and silent, except for the occasional whisper of wind through the twisted branches. Kalen stood at the edge of the clearing, his dagger glowing faintly in the pale moonlight, eyes scanning the darkness. He could feel it, the presence of something ancient, patient, and hungry. Alara clutched her mother's hand, trying to stay calm, but her heart raced. Her mother's breathing was shallow, still recovering from the curse of the tree, and the forest around them seemed alive with unseen eyes. "Duke Kalen, what is it?" Alara whispered. Kalen's gaze did not leave the shadows. "Creatures of the forest, or worse. The sorceress has sent something to test us. We are not safe yet." Her mother stirred weakly. "We must prepare. We cannot run from what is coming." Kalen nodded, kneeling beside her and tracing another symbol in the dirt with the tip of his dagger. The ground shimmered faintly, forming a protective circle around them. "This will hold them for a time," he said, "but not forever. We must be ready to act." Alara's hands shook as she tried to process his words. "Act? How? They aren't even real, are they?" Kalen's eyes softened for a brief moment. "Some things are more real than life itself. Fear can take form, and darkness can shape itself into anything it desires. We will fight if it comes." The forest seemed to stir at his words, leaves rustling as if whispering secrets, and the shadows at the edge of the clearing twisted unnaturally. A low hum vibrated through the ground, sending shivers up Alara's spine. Suddenly, a shape moved through the trees. A figure cloaked in black, taller than any human, with eyes glowing faintly red. It glided silently toward them, and the temperature dropped sharply. Kalen rose slowly, dagger in hand, his voice steady. "Stay behind me." Alara swallowed hard, pressing close to her mother. The figure stopped just beyond the edge of the protective circle, its presence pressing like a weight against the air. "You think you can hide here, Duke Kalen?" The voice was neither male nor female, echoing like a chorus of whispers. "You saved the girl's mother, but that does not change the rules. Life demands payment." Kalen tightened his grip on his dagger. "We will not allow your darkness to claim what is not yours." The figure shifted, and in an instant the shadows around it stretched like arms, trying to breach the protective circle. Kalen moved with precision, tracing another symbol in the air. Light shot from the dagger, cutting through the darkness, and the shadows recoiled with a hiss. Alara gasped. "Duke, it's like magic." Kalen's jaw tightened. "Magic is not a game, it is a responsibility. One wrong move and it consumes everything it touches." The figure stepped back, watching. "You are strong for a mortal," it said, voice like wind through dead leaves. "But strength cannot protect what is already cursed." Alara's mother coughed softly. "The curse, it lingers. Even after the tree, it is not gone. It is tied to the forest, to her. And to you, Duke." Kalen's eyes darkened. He felt it too, the echo of the tree's curse, faint but persistent, clinging to Alara like a shadow she could not see. "Then we will face it," he said firmly. "All of us together." Alara looked at him, awe and fear mingling in her eyes. "Together?" Kalen's lips tightened. "Yes, fear divides, courage unites. That is the lesson you must learn." For a moment the forest was silent. The figure remained, watching, waiting. And then with a whisper it vanished, dissolving into the mist like smoke. Alara exhaled shakily. "Is it gone?" Kalen did not answer immediately. He was not sure. Creatures of the forest were patient. They waited for weakness, for hesitation, for fear. And the sorceress, she would not rest until she had claimed what she desired. "We must move," he said finally. "Night will not protect us forever." They continued deeper into the forest, the moonlight fading behind a thick canopy of trees. Every step felt heavier, every sound amplified, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a branch, the distant cry of an animal. Alara's fear battled with her determination. She would not falter, she could not. Her mother depended on her, and Kalen's silent presence reminded her that strength could come in many forms. Hours passed, and they found a small cave nestled between two ancient trees. Smoke curled faintly from a natural chimney, and Kalen inspected it carefully. "It is safe enough for rest," he said, "but we cannot linger. The forest does not forgive weakness." Inside, the cave was cool and damp. Alara helped her mother sit, arranging blankets they had carried from the clearing. She glanced at Kalen, who stood at the entrance, eyes scanning the dark forest outside. For a moment he seemed human, vulnerable almost. "Duke," Alara said softly, do you ever get tired of fighting?" Kalen did not answer immediately. His hand brushed the hilt of his dagger, and he stared into the shadows outside as though the forest itself could see him. "Every day," he admitted finally. "And yet, some battles are necessary. Some debts must be repaid, even if it costs more than you can imagine." Alara's small hand brushed against his arm. Do you think we can win?" Kalen's gaze softened slightly as he looked at her. "I do not know," he said quietly. "But courage can make a difference. And you, Alara, have more courage than many I have known." Her cheeks flushed. She had never felt praised like that before. I'm just a girl." "You are more than that," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "Do not forget it." They sat in silence for a time, the cave filled with the soft sound of their breathing. Alara's mother murmured quietly, almost to herself, "We are lucky to have him, lucky and cursed." Kalen's eyes narrowed at the sound of her words. "Cursed," he repeated quietly. "Perhaps, but curses are meant to be broken if one has the will to face them." As the night deepened, a faint rustle came from the cave entrance. Kalen's hand went to his dagger immediately. A shadow flickered outside. "Who's there?" he called, his voice echoing through the cave. No answer came, only silence. Kalen stepped toward the entrance, eyes narrowing. "They are testing us," he said softly. "The forest, the sorceress, they want to see if we are ready. If we are weak, they will strike. And if we hesitate, we may not survive." Alara's hand gripped his sleeve. What do we do?" Kalen turned to her, his expression unreadable. "We stay together. We do not falter. We fight if we must. And we trust each other. That is our only hope." The night stretched on, filled with whispered threats and shifting shadows. Alara lay beside her mother, trying to rest, but sleep was impossible. Her mind raced with questions about the forest, the sorceress, and the mysterious bond forming between herself and the Duke. Kalen stood at the cave entrance, watching the forest like a guardian. He could feel the pulse of the earth, the lingering curse of the tree, and the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Yet, even in the darkness, he felt a strange warmth, something he had not felt in decades. The girl, her courage, her fire, it stirred something long buried in his heart. Hours later, the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees. The forest, silent and patient, seemed to retreat slightly, as though waiting for the next move. Kalen lowered his dagger but did not relax. He knew this was only the beginning. The sorceress's trap was far from over, and the forest still held secrets that could destroy them if they were not careful. Alara stirred, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. "Duke, will we be okay?" Kalen's gaze softened as he looked at her. "We will be, but the path ahead is dangerous, and there will be choices, hard choices. You must be ready, child." Alara nodded, determination setting in. I will be ready. I won't fail." Kalen's eyes darkened with both admiration and concern. "Do not promise what you cannot keep. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the strength to face it." Alara swallowed, gripping her mother's hand tightly. She felt the weight of Kalen's words, and for the first time she understood that the journey ahead would test more than their bodies. It would test their hearts, their trust, and the bonds they shared. And somewhere in the depths of the forest, unseen and patient, the sorceress watched. Her eyes glowed like embers in the shadows, and a cruel smile touched her lips. The Duke, the girl, and her mother had survived the night, but the true trial had yet to begin. The forest trembled as if alive, its ancient roots writhing beneath the earth. The shadows twisted, forming monstrous shapes that leapt and swirled toward the clearing where Kaelin, Alara, and her mother stood. The red glow from the cursed tree still lingered faintly in the distance, like a dying ember that refused to fade. Kaelin tightened his grip on his dagger, the blade humming with energy. "Stand close," he said to Alara and her mother. "The forest will not forgive weakness. We fight together or we fall together." Alara nodded, gripping her mother's hand tightly. Fear still clawed at her chest, but it was tempered with resolve. She had seen what Kaelin could do, had felt the weight of courage and sacrifice. Now she knew she had to help, not with magic but with the strength of her own heart. The shadows surged forward. Figures formed from darkness alone, with eyes that glowed like coals, faces distorted and twisted. They circled the clearing, whispering threats that sounded like both promises and warnings. Kaelin stepped forward, dagger raised, chanting words older than the forest itself. Light radiated from the blade, cutting through the darkness, forming a protective barrier around them. The shadows recoiled but did not retreat completely. "Alara, stay behind me," Kaelin said sharply. "Do not step outside the circle." Alara hesitated. "But I can help." I want to help." Kaelin's dark eyes softened slightly. "Then listen carefully. Your courage is powerful, but you cannot face this alone. Trust me and trust the circle." The shadows surged again, crashing against the barrier with a sound like breaking stone. Kaelin chanted louder, his voice steady, commanding, every syllable burning through the darkness. The ground shook, the air thick with tension. Alara's mother whispered a prayer under her breath, lending her energy and hope to the fight. Alara closed her eyes and focused on her mother's warmth, on Kaelin's strength, on the light that still lingered in the world. And she felt it, the heartbeat of courage, slow at first, then stronger, surging through her like a flame. The shadows screamed, twisting as they sensed the resolve in the clearing. Kaelin's dagger flared with bright light, and he pressed forward, pushing the darkness back step by step. But it was not enough. The shadows were endless, a tide of despair that threatened to overwhelm them. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the clearing, the sorceress. Her eyes glowed with malice and her hands wove intricate patterns in the air. "Foolish Duke," she hissed. "Do you think your light can banish darkness that has lived for centuries? Life demands a price, and tonight it is mine to collect." Kaelin's jaw tightened. "You will not take what is not yours," he said. His voice carried both warning and challenge, the calm before the storm. The sorceress laughed, a sound like cracking ice. She raised her hands and the shadows surged like a river breaking its banks. Alara's mother cried out, trembling, and Alara's grip on her hand tightened. Kaelin stepped forward, his dagger glowing brighter than ever. "We will not falter," he shouted. "We fight for life, for courage, for hope." The shadows collided with the protective circle, but the barrier held. Kaelin's voice rose, chanting words of power that echoed through the forest. Light blazed, and the shadows screamed, twisting violently as though burned by their own fear. Alara closed her eyes and focused, letting the courage she had nurtured through their journey flow into the circle. She imagined her mother safe, imagined Kaelin standing strong, imagined the forest at peace. The flame inside her grew, joining with Kaelin's magic, strengthening the barrier. The sorceress hissed in frustration. "No, this cannot be." Her hands shook as the light from the circle pushed against her darkness, forcing her backward. Kaelin's eyes met Alara's. "Now," he said, "focus everything you have. Your heart is stronger than you know." Alara nodded, her small hands lifting slightly. She imagined the love she felt for her mother, the trust she had in Kaelin, and the hope for a future free from fear. The circle flared, brighter than ever, and the shadows screamed as if the forest itself were crying out. The sorceress shrieked, stumbling backward. "This cannot be." Kaelin pressed forward, dagger glowing, voice chanting with unwavering power. "The darkness cannot claim what is protected by courage and love." Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. The cursed tree pulsed, its red veins bright with lingering magic. Kalen realized the truth. The tree was the source of the forest's unrest. To end this, they would have to face it directly. Alara, Kalen said, voice steady, you must stay here, trust me, I will end this curse. Alara shook her head. No, I'm coming with you. Kalen placed a hand gently on her shoulder. No, your strength here is as important as my fight there. Protect your mother, keep the circle strong. Alara nodded reluctantly, tears brimming. Be careful, she whispered. Kalen advanced toward the cursed tree, its massive trunk pulsing with red light. The sorceress followed, her magic flaring, shadows writhing around her. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the battle to unfold. Kalen raised his dagger and chanted, the words slicing through the darkness. Light surged from the blade, hitting the tree directly. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently as the ancient magic fought to survive. The sorceress tried to intervene, but Kalen's power, strengthened by the courage and hope Alara had poured into the circle, was greater. He pressed the blade into the trunk of the tree, chanting louder, forcing the curse to release its hold. The red veins of the tree pulsed violently, then began to fade, the twisted bark cracking and splintering as the dark magic was drawn out. The forest shivered, and the shadows recoiled, hissing as they dissolved into nothingness. The sorceress screamed, her form flickering. No, you cannot do this. Kalen did not stop. He poured every ounce of strength, every word of power, every ounce of courage into the tree. And then, with a final shout, the blade pierced the heart of the cursed tree. A brilliant flash of light erupted, consuming the clearing. The shadows screamed one last time before vanishing completely. The sorceress's scream echoed and then faded, leaving only silence. When the light dimmed, the forest seemed still. The cursed tree was gone, replaced by a simple, lifeless trunk. The red glow had vanished. The air felt lighter, warmer, and the oppressive weight of the forest had lifted. Kalen collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The dagger dimmed, its light fading, but the forest remained calm. Alara ran to him, her mother following slowly. Duke Kalen, are you okay? Kalen looked at her, a small, tired smile touching his lips. Yes, thanks to you, he said quietly. You gave me strength, courage, hope. That is more powerful than any magic. Alara's eyes widened. I helped, Kalen nodded. You helped more than you know. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to face it. You have faced it tonight and you have saved more than one life. Her mother stepped forward, placing a hand on Kalen's shoulder. You saved us all, she said softly, gratitude in her eyes. Thank you. Kalen shook his head. It is not I alone. It is all of us together. Strength comes from unity and hope comes from courage. Alara smiled, her small hands brushing dirt from his cloak. Then we did it together. Kalen's eyes softened as he looked at her, something long buried stirring in his heart. Yes, he said quietly, together. The forest, once dark and threatening, now seemed peaceful. Sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating the path ahead. The air smelled of earth and life, and the shadows that had haunted them were gone, at least for now. Alara helped her mother walk, leaning on Kalen as they moved slowly through the forest. For the first time in days, they felt free from fear. But Kalen knew that life would always bring challenges. Darkness could rise again. Curses could return. But he also knew that courage, love, and hope could endure. As they reached the edge of the forest, Kalen paused. He looked at Alara and her mother. The forest will remember tonight, he said quietly. But it will also remember what you have done, the courage, the love, the hope. That memory will last longer than darkness. Alara smiled. Then we'll keep it alive, she said softly. Forever. Kalen nodded, his heart lighter than it had been in decades. The journey had changed him. He had faced darkness, fear, and pain. But he had also found hope, courage, and a bond that even the forest could not break. The sun rose higher, painting the forest in gold. Life returned to the trees, the birds sang once more, and the shadows were gone. Kalen, Alara, and her mother stepped into the light together, scarred but stronger, and forever changed by the night they faced the forest and themselves. Ilara looked up at Kaelin. Will we always be safe? Kaelin smiled softly. No one is ever completely safe, but together we are stronger than the darkness. Her mother squeezed her hand, and that is what matters most. The forest was silent now, watching, but it no longer threatened. The redemption flame had burned bright, and in its warmth, hearts once heavy with fear were free to hope, to love, and to live. And Kaelin, once a duke of shadows and solitude, now knew that even in a world of curses and darkness, light could exist, born from courage, love, and the unbreakable bond of hearts united.